Greetings, one and all. Once again, Chris Courtney here for New Pragmatic. It just dawned on me. The early recording, for whatever reason, stopped after a minute 47. That's probably not going to be very effective recording for most of you, especially Abby, who submitted work today. Um, you know, sometimes you fall off your horse twice in a given day, and what I will say is it's easier to get back up the second time around. The first time around sometimes is shocking. It's like, things go wrong and you weren't expecting it to go wrong. You might have even had a vision of what success is going to look like. And then you crash to the earth, and it takes a second to recognize that things have gone horribly wrong. But the second time it happens, it's comedic. The second time disaster strikes, it becomes a laugh, because what else are you supposed to do? So here we are. It's part 2, feedback loop. I apologize for any confusion. I saw some people were watching. I've got views on the last session already, and they're probably like, yeah, what happened? Why did that quit? So I must have hit a button. That's what happened. Anyway, I welcome you all back to the feedback loop. We're going to take a look at Abby's survey. She's basically gone through the process of adding some filtering. I want to take a look at some of the questions, and I want to remind you, if you're watching this, the purpose of surveys, the way that I teach the usefulness of surveys, is to drill down on identifying people that you can talk to. The data that we get from the survey is less important to me than building a cohort of people that you can go forward and talk with. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and let's get this underway. All right. So we're back here at Abby's survey questions, and the important things are the following. One, she's got an intro. You want to basically tell people what they're about to experience in case they found their way here from a link and they're not really sure what's going on. 2, you want to filter out anybody who doesn't have a connection with this topic. You don't want people that basically are not going to be able to give you good information back participating. And, you ask, are you impacted by this? Yes, no. If no, get rid of those folks. If yes, which is going to be most people, it's going to be, what are you? Are you a student? Are you a teacher? Are you a parent? Are you an administrator? I would also throw an other in here, because there are going to be certain people that are like, I'm a business person in the community, and the schools are closed, so I'm impacted. You might throw just a simple question in there and say, how specifically have you or your how specifically have you been impacted? Like, just put a text field there, let them type out to their heart's content, and then say thank you. Okay, those are not people we're going to spend a lot of time with, but it is interesting to fill in some of the secondary gaps that might be out there. And then you get into student questions, and the student questions that you have here. The one thing I was focusing on earlier was, what type of environment do you learn and study in? I would change this and say, what type of environment are you currently using for school? And is it a quiet room? Is it a noisy shared room? Is it outside? Is it a public space? Other. I think these are all great. How do you get Wi-Fi, internet access? How did you eat lunch during the school week before COVID-19? That's a really good one. We want to make sure that if people are falling through the cracks, we want to know where they are. How are your classes structured? What materials were you required to have but you don't have? What type of learner are you? How would you compare your learning habits? How would you compare your learning habits now compared to last year? I think these are all pretty good. I think if there's anything you can do to trim 1 out. I'm always in favor of like, okay, if I had to lose one, what would it be? If I had to lose another one, what would it be? Like I would stack rank these in your head, like what are the most important things, and rip at least one out of literally each of these. Because again, you're not reliant on the data. You're reliant on you're trying to build a cohort of people, and I want everybody to complete the survey that participates. And the longer it is, the more likely it is I'm going to have a number of people abandon it, because we are going to add a couple of questions to the end of this. Parent questions, status during COVID-19. Now this is one I would change. It says work, stay at home parent, work from home parent, work in office. I would simply say work away from home, because I'm thinking about the bus driver. Okay, how does the bus driver answer this? Do they answer other? I'm a bus driver. I want to make it just broader, and the other's still valid. But if you either work from home or you work away from home. If you're a stay-at-home parent, unemployed can fit into that category too. You're not working. So what type of environment does your child currently use for school? Again, I would tweak that. The rest of this looks pretty good. Services your school is still providing during this time. If your child has access to a teaching assistant, if your child had access to a teaching assistant, how would you use that resource? And I think it's interesting that you throw that teaching assistant in there. I think the first question you've got to ask is, does your child have access to a teaching assistant? If yes, how are you utilizing that resource? If no, how would you utilize that resource? So there's a split there, because I mean, how do I answer that? You said, how would I access the teaching? If I had access to the teaching assistants, how would I use it? Well, I do have access. So how do I answer that question? Because you're asking for a hypothetical, and I have access. So we have to concern ourselves with that. Teacher questions. How is your current classroom set up for learning? Where would you prefer to teach? And this is important because some teachers want to be online, others do not. What materials were students required to have this year but don't? Please describe how your teaching style has evolved from last year. That's a great question. If you had a teaching assistant, here's the teaching assistant thing again. Do you have a teaching assistant? Yes. How are you utilizing that resource? Or no, would you utilize that resource? Have any classes been removed or canceled? And yeah, overall, I think, yeah, these are old ones. Overall, I think this is good. The thing that we've got to do is we've got to come back and add a request for permission to contact people after we've talked. After they filled the survey out, there's got to be a question that says, thank you for participating in the survey. Can I reach out to ask further questions? Or can I reach out when this, you could say something to the effect of, this is an ongoing research project. Would you like to be involved in further rounds of research? That's a great way to approach it. If they say yes, then you say, oh, fantastic. Please enter your email address and I'll keep you on the list. If they say no, then thank you for your time. Okay? So, and that's really it. That's the big piece of working with surveys, is making sure that you're getting out of it what you went into it seeking, which is access to a research cohort. That's the whole point. Otherwise, there's no reason to even do the survey, because your goal is never to use quantity over quality. We want quality research, and quality research is always going to be the user interviews by comparison to a survey. I believe Erica Hall said it once that 1,000 user surveys are worth one user interview, and I totally agree with that. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this edition of the Feedback Loop. I hope this was helpful for you, particularly if you're in the midst of trying to determine whether you're going to write a survey or not. And for the rest of you, I will chat with you tomorrow. Take care.